You get a property under contract, and instead of you closing on that deal, we basically find an investor that wants to buy the deal. And then we sell that contract in the deal to the investor, and then we make a spread.
This is the Multifamily Journey Podcast, show 18 with John Plumstead.
You're listening to the Multifamily Journey Podcast. In this show, you'll hear industry experts share tips of success and failure from their real estate investing journeys. You'll get a transparent look behind the curtain while you learn to fulfill the lifestyle you want to live and achieve your wealth goals. Get ready for the journey to financial freedom through investing in multifamily real estate. Here's your host, Blake Dailey.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Multifamily Journey Podcast. It is a beautiful late December day in Florida. The high today is like low 70s, and I'm just grateful to be in this awesome location where winter is usually a far off wonderland. Unlike Game of Thrones, winter is not coming to Panama City. So later this week, my wife and I are actually going to Disneyland where it's going to be like in the 80s. I love Florida. To celebrate the new year and her graduation. She's a doctor now, which is super awesome. And I'm so proud of her and the work she's put in. Now we get to go celebrate at Pandora and the new Star Wars ride and bounce around the world at Epcot. And I just cannot wait to let my inner little kid come out and run around and have a great time. So, and right in the middle of going to Disney and all that going on, there's a lot going on in real estate, on the real estate side as well. My partners and I are under contract on a 66 unit syndication, where in that deal is my role to bring capital to the table and handle investor relations and reporting. So really the investor relations side of things. So the good thing is we're already squared away on that on the capital side and made it through due diligence really smoothly, and things panned out really well. The debt service coverage ratio was so high in year one that we actually got additional funds from the bank going towards repairs. So that means cash flow was high enough that it covers all the expenses with enough left over for profit, whereas the bank sees it as padding to reduce risk. So that puts us at 80% loan to cost, or LTC. You'll hear that too on the deal, which is really good considering the current lending environment. And I think, yes, like lending right now is tight, but the key is to always find a good deal like this one. And just for transparency, this is not like an advertisement by any means that, for the deal or anything like that. This is a 506B fund, or B for Buddy. So we can't go out and solicit, and we don't really need to because we're fully capitalized. I just wanted to share, about the process and give a look behind the scenes and, what's going on. And after all, this is the Multifamily Journey Podcast, where we talk about the journey to establishing and growing a multifamily portfolio. So I'm learning every day along the way. So hopefully I can pass that along, and it helps you all as well. And at the same time of this 66 unit deal, I'm also under contract personally on an 8 unit property in Fort Walton Beach that I'm planning to make my next BRRRR and B, or BRRRR of an Airbnb rental. If you haven't heard the term before, I actually gave a webinar presentation for Stu and David, who were on the podcast a couple of weeks ago, where I talked about BRRRR and B, because that's what I've been doing here in Panama City and done really well with it. I was actually able to surpass my W-2 income with the strategy in only a year. So I love the strategy, and I'm really looking forward to adding the new property to the mix. 8 Airbnb units all under one roof is going to be a new challenge for sure, but I'm up for it. It's like anything in multifamily, because there are built-in efficiency. Like this one building will have one insurance policy, one tax bill, one electric and water bill, and so on. Up to this point, I have 7 Airbnb units across 4 properties. So that's 4 bills of every type. So having 8 units under one roof will really help to lower my fixed cost per unit, and lower my overall expense ratio compared to the residential units I have. And this is just one reason why I love multifamily, is just that built-in efficiency. My wife and I actually did the walkthrough inspection on the property yesterday of all the units, and the condition of the ones that I hadn't seen before were in worse shape than I expected. So my first time on the property with the seller, he only showed me the best units, as many sellers and brokers do, especially in the offering memorandums. It's always the best, the renovated units that are shown. It turns out that 5 of the 8 units are going to need a full gut rehab. It had old wiring and broken tile and bad windows, even like compressed particle plywood board, whatever it is, on the walls instead of drywall. So they were pretty rough, and I had already padded the expense for the renovation of those units, but not to the point that these units will need to be repaired. So just me personally, like I have all nice units in good shape and I rehab them fully. So I'm not the kind of owner to have crappy units. So I didn't really want to do that for this. So I could probably rent them, not as is, but with light renovation. But I'm thinking long term, for my future guests, even since this will be a short-term rental, I think it's a much better financial decision to repair them completely now. I just hope the additional expense doesn't bust my budget. So that's why it's important to always have an inspection and due diligence period. If you go off what sellers tell you without seeing the units yourself, you're putting yourself at a huge risk. So keep that in mind. And I'm waiting on the repair budgets now, sending those to my contractor. So fingers crossed that I can still make this thing work. And I just thought it would be good to today share a little bit about my journey. I mean, that's what this is about, right? Sharing my journey and that of my guests so that you guys can see the behind the scenes and make better decisions along your journey as well. And speaking of my guest today, I had the pleasure of talking with John Plumstead, an investor and wholesaler who lives in New York, but actually invests virtually all over the country. He's actually in the Army and teaches at West Point, my nemesis school. So I tease him about that, even though, Army football beat Air Force football this year. So, but anyway, I digress. This is a great show because John shares tips of how you can invest in real estate from anywhere thanks to technology. He actually shares some of the tools and software platforms he and his company use to be more efficient investing from a distance. He also shares how he started this model earlier this year in April and has done 50 deals since. So 50 deals in 9 months is pretty awesome. Now, I know this isn't multifamily, but the tips and the tactics he shares work for any real estate strategy, talking to sellers and finding deals and finding the right market, all that stuff is super applicable. So many times the deals you're purchasing won't be in your backyard. So you'll need to learn how to invest from a distance. Like both my current deals, one's in North Carolina, which is, a couple states away. And then the other is Fort Walton Beach, which is an hour and a half away. So neither one in my, backyard current market. So this is really applicable stuff. So it's going to be good. So buckle in and then get ready for an awesome interview and let's get into the show. All right, John, welcome to the show. Thanks for coming on.
Hey, thanks for the invite, Blake. I'm super pumped to talk to you today.
Yeah, we got that little window of productivity right between Christmas and New Year's where people are actually working for like those 2 or 3 days. So we got to jump on.
This is my favorite week of the year, man, because it's like, Christmas is done and you have that one week of reset where everyone's dreaming big about the new year and getting excited. So
yeah, I love that's good stuff. Yeah, I'm writing my vivid vision right now. I got my bullet points. I just made it through the book. I got the bullet points out and I'm starting to build the paragraph form. I don't know if you've read the book, but I'm starting. Yeah,
I have read the book. He's got a great TED talk too. That's all about entrepreneurship. I love that guy. I forget his name.
Cameron Harold or something like that. Yeah. He's the CEO book. Whisperer. So if that's who he's talking with every day, then he writes a book. I should probably read it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I'm trying to line for 2021. That's awesome. But for everybody listening, let's get into it, man. What's your background? Give us a little bit about you and how you got into real estate.
So John Plumstead, Army guy, go Army, beat Navy, and beat Air Force. But
boo! I got my Falcon sweatshirt on today.
I like it.
You guys did beat us by a score, unfortunately.
So real estate investor, I'm in the single family space and small multifamily. But I think that's as much a function of our current times than a favorite asset class. I know this is a multifamily podcast. And I think if you talk to us in a couple of years, if there's great deals to be had in multifamily, that's where we'll be. But what we specialize in today is finding off-market single family homes at a discount. We get into those homes, we wholesale some, we flip some, we wholesale some. But me and my partner, Frank, have been in real estate for about 5 years or so, pretty active. And then this year we decided to team up and see what we could do together. We wholesaled our very first deal in April. And since April, we've done over 50 deals. So we've been cranking it out.
Man, super hard. Awesome. And before we were talking before the show started too, these 50 deals, these are houses you never saw, right? Properties that you never visited yourself.
Yep. We're 100% virtual. So we recognize that from the get-go, we wanted to set up our company so we could go to any market, be completely location independent. And we're looking to do big things in 2021. So
yeah, I love that. Man. Cause then you get to follow the the deals that you want and invest where you want, but still do like for you right now, you got a day job, right? You're still active in the army, still active in the army, teaching at the academy. So that's awesome. It allows you to do your day job and invest and follow good deals like you're saying. I think this will be really good because it's not necessarily multifamily focused, right? I mean, this is the Multifamily Journey Podcast, but within that, there's real estate principles that apply to whatever strategy you're doing, whether it's wholesaling or flipping or multifamily or flipping big multifamily. Like a lot of the things that we're going to talk about today apply to all that. So this is going to be really good stuff.
Great. I'm excited.
All right. So let's jump right into it. So you said you and your partner started out with wholesaling, did your first wholesale deal in April. So for those listening, we haven't really dug into wholesaling deeply. We've talked about it and touched on it, but just like the overview, what is wholesaling for those out there listening?
Yeah. So you get a property under contract, and instead of you closing on that deal, we basically find an investor that wants to buy the deal. And then we sell that contract in the deal to the investor, and then we make a spread, right? So on a typical deal, let's say it's a $100,000 house, we get it under contract for $60,000. We find an investor that's very happy to pay $70,000, and then we go to closing, and the seller sells it to the buyer, and we help facilitate that transaction, and we get a spread, in this case, $10,000. The good things about wholesaling is you can get into it in theory with not that much money because you're not buying any of the properties, pretty low risk. The hard thing is wholesalers on average have a really poor reputation because there's basically no barrier to entry to get in. So there's a lot of really terrible, low character type of people in the space. So,
yep. And I've definitely ran into my share of those, but I can tell you this, none of those bad wholesalers are doing 50 deals a year from April to December. So I think that speaks to the volume you guys are doing, probably doing it right. So yeah, basically like I did this early on this year too. Started out wholesaling and did 3 early on in 2021. But it's very active. And I think, the big distinction here is in multifamily, most people get into it for, the passive income kind of, follow lifestyle, whatever it is, have that passive income coming in for a multifamily so you can focus on other things. But some people just love real estate. And this is what I really like about wholesaling is that you can really outperform your competition by the marketing. So can you kind of talk to what you guys do differently that allows you to jump right in and in 8 months, do 50 deals?
Yeah, I think it's if you're someone who loves the deal, right, and loves the excitement of putting deals together and making them happen. It's the single family space and kind of what we're doing is awesome because in 9 months we've gotten 50 reps, right? I venture to say the best commercial multifamily broker out there has not done 50 reps in that time. That'd be crazy, right? So if you like the repetition, it's awesome. But
and this is something like Bill Allen. I know you probably know who Bill is or talked to him, been to Flip Hacking Live, but that's what he talks about. He's like, man, I just love doing deals, like the velocity and the speed of putting these things together. And he does like 200 a year, 300 a year, whatever it is. But yeah, for people that love real estate. And that's what I really enjoyed about it was like getting deals, like talking to sellers, like some of that stuff is, if you got the skill set for it it's fun, to make money happen. Yeah. And it's one of those things that can fit into your lifestyle too, like how you guys have it set up to it's virtual. So, there's different ways within real estate to accomplish your goals, right? So I like to give little insight to it's not multifamily's, a strategy. It's like a means to an end. So there's different ways to get to that end. So yeah. I love this, but yeah, like I think I cut you off there, but your marketing strategy, what are you guys doing to, get these deals being virtual? I know it's all off market deals. So you're not probably cruising on Zillow or calling real estate agents. So how are you guys going after these deals that aren't on the market yet?
First, I'll just say like our overall strategy. So we're simple dudes. We believe in Warren Buffett's value investing, right? We're clearly not as smart as him, but we like to use those principles, right? And I sum those principles up as buy good properties in good locations at a discount. Like that's it, right? Good locations, good properties at a discount, and you'll be good to go. So one of the reasons we're in single family right now is we feel like we can do that, right? And we feel like multifamily, it's harder to do that. Doesn't mean it's impossible, but it's harder to do that. So how do we find good assets in good areas at a discount, we reach out directly to sellers. So what we do is we pull public records of what we call tired landlords, someone who is a landlord. They've owned a property for a while, and ideally they're not in the local area. So they're out of state landlord. And then we contact that person primarily through text message. We sent over 200,000 text messages in the month of November. We're generally like 10,000 text messages a day. So we text like crazy. When we get done texting all those people, then we'll send ringless voicemails to them that says, hey, we're interested in buying your property. Give us a call back if you'd like to sell it. Then once we get done with that ringless voicemail round, then we have cold callers that'll cold call all the people left over and try to get a hold of them. So we'll do that with tired landlords. We also, from public records, can pull distress lists. So we call distress like if someone has a lien against their property, if someone's going through divorce, someone's in pre-foreclosure, we'll do all that same marketing to those people. So we have to pay for the data, to the public records data, and then we have to skip trace or get the phone numbers for all those people. But at this point, we've got probably like 500,000 people or so, and we add a ton every month. And then once they get into kind of our company, then we text them, we ringless voicemail them, we cold call them like crazy, trying to see if they want to sell us the property. Almost everyone says no. Like, no, I don't want to. And like, okay, fine. We'll
it's
talk
a numbers
to you next
game
month,
for sure.
And then, some of them say, yeah, they want to sell. And then, we tend to try to buy right around 70 cents on the dollar. So most people don't want 70 cents on the dollar for their property either. So it just means we have to talk to a ton of people, like you say.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I found too, right? It's like one of the first things you learn in wholesaling, if you stick with it, is just a big funnel, right? You're going to have a ton of people coming in, you filter through them, talk to them, like target them, get to the people that say yes, and then ultimately get down to a very small number that actually close out of that top number. But there's one thing a few things really that I want to break down, because you just covered a ton and I want to get into that. But it sounded like the basics of what you're doing is first finding the market that you want to invest in, buy in. Two is finding the properties to target, through the data, through list source or whatever. And then three is targeting those sellers that owns the properties. Is that kind of the broad overview? Yep.
That sums it up perfectly. We, being military guys, we started out just in military towns because that's what we were comfortable with. And there's a lot of tired landlords in military towns. And then we've since kind of grown out to other areas. We're now, I know you're in the Panhandle. We're in the Panhandle of Florida. We're in like 10 to 12 markets. We're really bullish on a lot of the Southeast. We like Florida a lot. We like Texas. We think Texas is crazy. Right now, if we get a property under contract and we start marketing it on Facebook, we have California buyers hitting us up almost immediately. There's a lot of money coming from California into Texas right now.
That's the same thing I hear in multifamily too. Like, just so much money from investors coming out of California to buy places all over the country. Yeah, that's one thing I want to dig into here. So like this number one step, like finding your market. So you said you started out in the military towns, but now you're in different locations. It sounds like, big growing metros, like you're saying Tampa and some of these other places in Texas. So what are you guys looking for in those markets to say, okay, we want to go buy properties here?
We just did a big analysis of the top 500 cities in the United States. And what we looked at is population growth, job growth, income growth, and there's another column I can't exactly remember. But crime. I think crime was another one. Okay, so there's a million different ways to do it. And if you type in best cities in the United States, a bunch of writers have already done this. But we looked at it and said, let's try to look at all 500 of the biggest cities in the United States. Let's put this data in there and then sort it. I got one of my buddies in the West Point math department to help me figure out what to do with all the data.
Leverage the network.
Right? And then we sorted it out and said, hey, where do we want to go for the new year, right? Because all of 2020, we kind of just used our intuition and said, I feel good about that, right? So we did that full analysis. And what it told us is kind of what we thought, the Southeast, but then Florida and Texas, right? Like Florida and Texas, we think, and the data backs it up, are going to continue to see really solid appreciation. And I think it's going to be reasonable appreciation, unlike places like San Francisco or Seattle I'm a little more concerned about those types of markets, but I feel like the 10-year on Florida and Texas is really solid.
Yeah, that's really good. And I think that's great insight for somebody looking to get into a market, right? Is look at the population growth, the wage growth, the job growth, the thing that drive housing market appreciation. And then the crime rate. You want to be in good areas and not have, a property that's going to be run down and have bullet holes come through the walls. So yeah, that's what you look for in the market. And I think that's all good stuff. Those Florida and Texas are places I've looked to and that I'm really bullish on. So once you narrow down your market, and we went over that fast. I mean, there's a lot to select in the market. Like you said, you looked at 500, but for respect of time, you find your market through those things. But then you start to find the properties that you want to go after and target. And how many did you send in November? You said 20,000?
200,000.
200,000 texts. All right. So you're targeting, sending out 200,000 text messages. How many properties are you finding? Like what kind of criteria are you looking for to buy in the residential space?
Criteria, we're like $70K. So $70,000 is kind of our low end after repair value. So kind of like a C to, maybe C minus type asset. And then we'll usually go up to like 400 or 500K on the top side, depending on the market. So, maybe B plus, A minus type assets, right? And then we try to get in there. The ones we keep for ourselves, we prefer real light rehab, right? If we can get a property that's 70% minus repairs, and those repairs are like, repaint, recarpet, refloor, that kind of stuff, there's a good chance we keep it for ourselves. We tend to wholesale these days the bigger rehabs because you can do big rehabs virtually, but I think there's so many more variables involved that there's
that's
so
when you have
many
to have
more
a team in place in the
there.
market, the contractors, the agents, the lenders, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, that's really good because in wholesaling is a really cool strategy because it takes the risk off of you, right? You're not doing that rehab, so you don't hold the risk. If the market goes down, whatever during your rehab, you're not eating that. You're not taking that shot in the pants. So you basically make your profit and get paid for finding a really good deal and handing it to the other investor who's gonna do the rehab. So that's good stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so looking for places that are 70 to 400,000 after repair value, meaning like when they're all fixed up, nice and pretty, and Susie's gonna buy it off of Zillow, and then places in good neighborhoods, right? You don't want crime ridden. Anything else? Any other little tips that people can be filtering to find good off market properties?
I think there was a time where we'd go zip code to zip code and we'd look at activity in each zip code. And depending on what scale you're doing, I think that makes sense. When we look at a city now, we just use 70,000 as our, hey, if we use this as our low end, hopefully that keeps us out of all the bad areas, right? Because you'll talk to an agent and they'll be like, hey, let's go street by street and I'll tell you what is a yes and what is a no. But the way our business is set up at scale and at volume, it doesn't work like that. We need to make it super, super easy on our acquisitions team. So it's just like, hey, if the after repair value is over 70K, like let's analyze it, make an offer, see what we can do.
That's really good. So you get to that point, you're finding the properties that you want to target. So what's that next step for you guys? I know you said text messaging and cold calling, but can you break that down a little bit for the person just looking to get started? What do you think would be the best way if you're going to pick one to just start to target these? You got your market, you got your properties, now you want to go after them.
Yeah, I think it depends on your budget. If you've got very little budget, I would just text yourself. Like I've sent, I think it's thousands, at least over 1,000, probably thousands of text messages just from like my iMessage app on my MacBook, right? Where you just copy and paste phone numbers from a spreadsheet. I'm sure there might be a way to do it automatically, but I don't know how to do that, right? But text message works. Delivery rate and response rate is super high with text message. And people are like, hey, what should you say? The only thing we're trying to do in a text message or in a cold call is, hey, Steve, this is John. Do you own 123 Main Street? And if they say yes, we go, great. Are you interested in taking a below market offer, or are you interested in selling, or some form of that question? And if they say yes to that question, we go, great. If it's one of our virtual assistants go, awesome. Can I schedule a phone call with my manager? Right? Like that's all we want to do for a qualified lead. If
And that's awesome because that's so simple. Like what you just said is so simple for somebody getting started, right? You don't have to go like build SpaceX and shoot a rocket up and then land it down in the seller's front yard and asking if they want to sell. Like you literally just open up your iMessage app, type in their name and address and say, hey, is this your property? Do you want to sell it? Super easy. I've done that myself, like hand dialing. Like I know like they got all the dialer apps you can use, but I would just punch them in, call, just phone call after phone call. So that's awesome and super actionable for people listening. Like rewind that and listen to how, I mean, just to get started, that's awesome.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are nervous about the like, what do you say? Like, I'm not very good at sales, this, that, and the other. Like the person you're texting or talking to on the phone, they don't know what to say either, right? Like they're just as nervous as you are. So I tell people just be super honest. Be like, hey, I'm a real estate investor. I'm trying to get started. I don't have a long track record, but I came across your house and thought it'd be interesting to talk to you about it. Are you interested in selling it all? Right, but the idea is like, just keep trying to qualify them. And if they're qualified, do they own the house? Do they want to sell? Are they somewhat motivated to sell? That means they're a qualified lead. If they're a qualified lead, then say, what do you want for the property? And they're going to say, market value. And then, anchor with something super low.
And I think people like anchoring that, like those little techniques you learn when you do it. But I think people, like you said, just kind of get nervous or they're scared to go out and like talk to these people, right? Like, hey, do you want to sell your house? No. Like, okay, go cry because I just got rejected. But how many no's do you hear? You send 200,000 text messages. How many no's do you hear? Probably in the tens of thousands, probably. So especially since you've been doing it. Yeah.
So our numbers for November, like fourth quarter in real estate can be tough. October, November, December can be rough. So our numbers were hurting in November, but we were, for every 3,000 text messages, we'd get one qualified lead, right? So we'd get 2,999 no's before we'd get someone just to say, yes, I own the house and yes, I'm interested in selling. So numbers.
And what's great about that is like you have to go through the rejection to get to the success. If you just call somebody up and say, hey, do you want to sell their house? The chances that on the first call, that person is going to be a qualified lead, like you're saying, and go through that sales process is very, very slim. Like you have to go out and make it happen. I hear all the time, and I'm sure you do too. And I just kind of like, I try to be respectful of it, but people are like, I can't find any deals. And I'd like, don't want to be like, oh, you're an idiot. You got to just go do this. But seriously, like there's always people complaining about not being able to find deals, but how many letters did they send out? How many calls did they make? How many text messages did they send? So how are you going to get leads to analyze, to offer on, to close on if you're not out there looking? So, and I think too, like people just, they don't know where to get started, or maybe they don't think they can do this all themselves. And you're working a full-time job. So what are a few systems or softwares or whatever that people can use to help them, whether it's like that texting app or list source to find like those leads? Like what are you guys using, like a few of them that really streamline the process and make it a lot easier on you to do that kind of volume?
Yeah, for texting, we use a platform called Lead Sherpa. I'm not positive, but I think our company is called Grayline Investments. If you type in Grayline, I think you might get a deal.
And we'll put that in the show notes too. You can go to Grayline Investments if they have that on there. But yeah, Lead Sherpa does like the skip tracing for you and everything, right? And then text it right out from that one platform.
Yeah, we do all of our skip tracing and texting from Lead Sherpa. And then for data, some people use ListSource. We use PropStream. So the cool thing about PropStream is you can pull all the data, but then that's also what we use to comp properties, right? That's maybe the most important part of this entire equation is comping properties, because you can pick a good area, you can pick a good asset, but then you have to buy at a discount. The only way you know if you're buying at a discount is if you can get that after repair value. So we use PropStream to get our after repair value. Let's see, we use a lot of other sources, software platforms.
No, that's really good. Like, for simplicity, use PropStream. Once you find your market, go to PropStream, type in the kind of criteria you're looking for, and it gives you a big list of all the property owners, their information or whatever. You put that in Lead Sherpa, then, which skip traces it, which means that gives you, the owner's cell phone, their email, their address, mailing address, all of that stuff. And then from that same Lead Sherpa platform, you text them out and it blasts out 200,000 texts a month. I love it.
Exactly.
So, that is not that hard. Like I just bought, a list of 800 or 1,000 a couple, like 2 weeks ago for, I don't know, it was like $50, $60 or something like that. And then get it skip trace was another, I don't know, $50, and then a sentence like another, I don't know, $200. So then I'm looking at $300 for 1,000 leads. And off of that, maybe the conversion rate's 4 or 5. And I have, 5 to 10 leads that I can work off of, so it's just a numbers game. Like it takes some money to do this marketing, but if you're thinking about $300, I'm sure yours is more because you're sending out 200,000, but you can easily get started for a couple $100. So you don't need, $70,000 to go buy that $70,000 property. You need $300 to market, find the seller, and then get it under contract as a discount and sell it or flip it or burr it yourself.
A lot of people send postcards, and the tricky thing about postcards is most people are sending, it's about 50 cents a postcard, where a text message and a phone call, if you're doing it yourself, it could be like almost free, right? So once you pay to have that list and you pay to have those phone numbers, like you can grind and hustle for free potentially, right? And that's how we did it. We skip traced on PropStream. We pulled the data, skip traced on PropStream in Lawton, Oklahoma. It's a small army town. I think our list was probably like 500 people or so. And we texted that entire list, and then we closed 2 deals off it. So 500 people, we closed 2 deals. We're like, oh man, like it's working. Let's go hit another market. And instead of doing 500 this time, let's do 5,000. And instead of texting them all ourselves, let's use Lead Sherpa. And then that time, instead of getting 2 deals, we got like 5 deals. So we're like, let's 10X again and let's 10X again. And that's kind of how we spent 2020. Yeah,
I love that because it just builds on itself. Like once it might be hard to justify that first $500 when there's not an immediate or like guaranteed benefit from it. But once you get that first one, what do I'm sure you do your average wholesale fee or your average profit per deal?
$7,000 for a wholesale.
Okay. So then you're talking $7,000 that you just made in profit that you can go allocate towards more marketing. And that 7,000 is going to get you a lot further than the first 500 did. And then you're that much better because you went through the rejection and learned and, have experience and can take that forward. So it just snowballs. So I love that you said that because I found that come true time and time again in this business. That's good stuff.
Yeah. There's so many people that they understand the vehicle that is real estate investing. They think it's sexy. They want to do it, but they just don't know that next step to do, right? And you can pay someone a bunch of money to teach you an entire process. But when in doubt, I say just pick up the phone and start calling sellers or start calling agents or start calling brokers. Like it doesn't even matter who you call. It's just pick up the dang phone and start putting in work. And as you get no's, you're going to figure out better strategies and how to get more efficient and how to become better at sales. You just got to get started and take action,
Man, that's awesome. I just wrote that down for the quote for this episode because that was that good. Just when in doubt, just pick up the dang phone, take action. I love that. So I think I asked you this beforehand, but are you guys doing anything for commercial? Or are you targeting only residential?
No, only residential. I think we could start hitting multifamily at some point. And we've got some peers in the industry that are going after multifamily stuff.
Yeah, because I was going to see if you'd seen a difference in like in the marketing needed to get a multifamily property or, because I think the owners, are probably a little bit different than, say an absentee landlord that owns one house and moved away or, landlord that owns, that's his business. He owns this multifamily revenue generating business essentially.
They're definitely different. You're going to have definitely more sophisticated sellers, right? Like we've targeted a lot of even small multifamily, and out of 50 deals in 2020, one of them was a duplex. All the rest were single family homes. Why? Because a landlord, someone who's going to buy a duplex, triplex, or fourplex, like they probably understand value. They're probably an investor. They're probably not going to sell it at a discount. And then multifamily, I think, is the same way, right? But then
so the key is it's harder to get that discount.
The discount,
because they know they're holding on to something more valuable.
But I would say, right, and this is where I differ from a lot of people. A lot of people look at this game that like you have to talk to an apartment complex owner and convince them to sell. And I think that's the wrong way to go about it. Like I'm not in the business to try to convince people to sell. I'm in the business to talk to someone who wants to sell on the right day. Right. Yeah. So that means if you don't want to sell today, that's completely fine. but I'm going to call you in 45 days and see if something's changed. Right.
Yep. The key is the follow up. Yeah. I think, a lot of times as a wholesaler, you're a problem solver. Like you're probably targeting, absentee landlords with certain criteria. Maybe they're going through an eviction. Maybe they have, physical distress on their property and needs a new roof. There's grass growing, there's holes in the windows are busted out. So these people oftentimes sell at a discount because they have no other options, right? They can't go list this ugly house and get market value for it. You're buying at a discount because there's value to be added there. Or maybe they just got divorced, right? There's something in their life that's causing them to need to sell this property. It's in no means taking advantage of them, but it's finding the right person at the right time, like with the right situation. So
I think it's one of those areas where it could be looked at as predatory, right? It could be looked at,
and maybe for the bad wholesalers it is, but I think a lot of times it's helping them solve their problem. But yeah,
I think it's what we do is we try to be very transparent. We try to conduct business at very high level of character, and I look at it like there's no one else that is looking to buy the properties that we're buying, right? And the big thing we offer is speed, right? Like we can close fast. And then there's no fees when we buy something, right? So the seller doesn't have to worry about agent commissions or doesn't have to worry about appraisals, doesn't have to worry about closing costs or anything like that. It's like, hey, we will give you this amount of money and this is the amount of money you're walking away with, right? Like we take care of every single thing else.
Yeah, that's really good. I think there's a big distinction to be made there. I know we talked a little bit, we've been talking a lot about the wholesaling and the marketing, but we were talking beforehand, you've have made a little pivot to where you're now holding on to more, because oftentimes wholesaling is like because there's no barriers to entry. It's like what you do when you have no money, but now you guys, the business is rolling and there's more capital, more money to hold on to flip property. So what's that pivot been like, and why did you guys want to hold on to more or flip more rather than just wholesale them right away?
There is no better asset class for building wealth than real estate. And in most instances, people don't have the time or energy to invest in it on their own. So how do you build wealth with real estate when you lack the time and energy? Leave that to the GrowthView Properties. The GrowthView team finds, negotiates, and manages multifamily assets for private investors. Their mission is to help investors secure the ultimate asset, which is time, all the while impacting the greater good with their endowment fund that fuels the mission of charitable organizations. Find out more by going to thegrowthview.com. That's view with a VUE.com. Put your money to work so you don't have to at thegrowthview.com.
Yeah, I think one of the triggers for it was we would find great deals and then investors wouldn't think they were great deals. Because in real estate, investors are a finicky group of people, right? Like we're told on so many podcasts to have your criteria, right? So a lot of people have their criteria, but then they can't take their blinders off to see a deal right in front of them if it doesn't fit their criteria. Yeah. And where I'm going is a lot of people get really hung up on cash flow. How much is this property going to cash flow on a monthly basis? And there were times where we would sell a property that maybe it's only cash flowing $100 a month, but on purchase, someone would capture $30,000 of equity, right? And they'd be like, well, it only cash flows $100 a month. And we'd be like, you are literally capturing $30,000 of equity the day you purchase it. And they're like, yep, but it only cash flows $100 a month, right? After we heard that enough, we're like, that's fine. We're going to start buying these for ourselves. We'll buy it. We'll sell it right away. We'll pay all the fees and we'll walk away with $20,000. And that's kind of what we've been doing a lot more of.
Yeah, that's awesome. I always say like equity gives you options. So it doesn't matter. I mean, it might not matter if the cash flow is lower, but you have all the equity. You can refinance, you can sell, you can, you have exit strategies. You can, leverage it with a HELOC to go buy more properties that cash flow better. Like with that equity, there's so much there. So I think that's really good, is like look outside the box, look at the whole deal, not just one metric. Like cash on cash return might not be the best metric if you, I don't know, say if you're burning a property and you have a low cash on cash, but you just pulled out a ton of equity and now you don't have like that much left. And I guess that would change your cash on cash, but yeah, don't quote me on the math here, but you know what I mean? Don't get caught up on one metric, especially in multifamily. Like if I see this all the time, like the initial cash flow will be lower, but it's a value add deal. So if I looked at year one cash flow, I might be missing, $1 million of value because we're boosting the NOI, cutting expenses, increasing that cash flow over time. So if you're looking at a property day one, especially like in the markets you guys are buying, right? These are an appreciating good market. So real estate is a long-term investment. So think about that $100 of cash flow in 5 or 10 years is now, $200, $300 of cash flow, and you've continued to grow equity. So that's what why you need to look at the whole deal. And I'm really glad you brought that up, because that's where I've found really good deals, is deals other people have missed because they didn't see opportunity there. And now I'm, have more equity because of that. So I guess in a way, like if other investors keep missing good deals, then that makes more for us then. But we want more people to make good deals. So like recognize that there's, equity gives you options, and like that cash flow is not always the most important thing.
Well, that's when, you asked, hey, do you guys do any multifamily? Like not today, but I think we will, because our strategy continues to be, good areas, good assets at a discount. And if we could buy mobile home parks in good areas, good assets at a discount, we would, or self-storage, or apartment complexes, or whatever asset class we feel confident that would fit that criteria, then that's what we would do. And then for the math part, you don't have to be an expert at internal rate of return. Okay. Like I barely made it through West Point. I'm no math genius. I couldn't do an internal rate of return calculation.
Yeah. I just know Excel calculates it for me, right? I just gotta select the right values.
You have to at least appreciate what that means, right? Like you have to understand that if you get $30,000 of equity today and you only get $100 of cash flow, it takes you 300 months to even that out, right? And then, if you discount some of that cash, $30,000 today is a lot better. I don't want to make this confusing. I'm confusing myself because I don't know IRR that well. There's a point where like I'm talking to investors or whatever, and it gets like really detailed on the math. I'm like, all right, the math works, right? The values are correct. I can't explain every little thing into it. Understanding the basics is super important. And I think there's something. I think I'm going to make like a sign and put this above like your computer right there. Good asset, or good areas, good assets at a discount. I like that. That's how I explain it, right? Because if it hits that, the IRR is going to be good. The cash on cash is going to be good. Everything's going to be good if it hits that criteria. Yeah, I think if everybody had that criteria, and of course, like you want to know what you're going to buy, but if you buy a good asset in a good area at a discount, you're probably going to make money and be all right. And about the cash flow too, I think there's one thing David Green from the Bigger Pockets podcast said that I thought was really, really good. I don't know when this was, but cash flow is like a defensive mechanism. Like equity is where you build the wealth and build generational wealth and like change your life. Equity is what does that. Mm-hmm. Cash flow might get you that like initial freedom if you don't like your job or whatever, so that your cash flow covers your living expenses. Like that's super important if you need that to get to that next stage of your life. But cash flow is not gonna, it's hard to make $1 million, like become a millionaire through cash flow, like to make $1 million a year through cash flow, but to make $1 million a year in equity and net worth and the ability to leverage that to go buy more assets for more cash flow is just insane. Like equity is what you see just skyrocket, right? And that's what the super rich are protecting, is all their equity. Right. I think, if we broke it into kind of 3 pots, we've got cash flow, appreciation, and equity kind of on purchase, right? And equity and appreciation go hand in hand. But then the question is like, what is your number one criteria? And my answer is like all of them, right? Like you need to make sure you have a cash flowing asset, because that gives, that's your defense, and that's your survive a rainy day, right? Yeah. And then, as you said, the equity on purchase, and ideally some appreciation. We can't, for sure predict appreciation, but we can guess, right? Yeah. But if you're buying like value add deals, like most of yours probably are, you can force appreciation too. Yes, so it's not always market appreciation. Yeah, don't always count on the market appreciation, but you can, like the data you're saying, you can find solid forced appreciation. Yeah. And I mean, I think, we were in Dayton, Ohio for a little while. Nothing against Dayton, Ohio. I'm from Michigan, but I don't invest in Michigan. And we're not investing in Dayton, Ohio anymore, right? Like if you look at Dayton, Ohio, and then you look at a place like Savannah, Georgia, or Tampa, Florida, or Panama City, what do you think, if you had to predict the next 10 years, are more people going to be moving to Dayton? Up and to the right. More people going to be moving, to Panama City and Savannah?
What, you don't like the beautiful gray skies and cold in Dayton, Ohio? I thought that's what
I love
everybody
the
wants.
Rust Belt. I'm a product of the Rust Belt, but I'm not trying to live there.
Yeah, me too. I'm from my hometown's like 2 hours west of Dayton, so it's like the same climate. I hate the cold. I would much rather have sand in between my toes and down in Panama City. But yeah, that's a really great insight right there. Is like, just think of where people want to be. Like, do you think Tampa or Dayton is going to appreciate more over the next 10 years? Obviously, look at other data, but I mean, that as a baseline is really good. And I think it's a good transition point too, into like, once you find these markets, and we talked about, how you do all the virtual wholesaling, but I mean, for you guys, like personally, just how do you get comfortable with investing in houses that you never see? Because I think that's what holds up a lot of people too.
Well, I live in New York right now, right? So let's say I got three options. I can invest in New York, where taxes are crazy, local governments are out of their minds, right? Like, I don't want to invest here, right? Or I could just not invest, or I could do it virtually, right? So like, the only way I can invest right now is, in my opinion, is to invest virtually. So it's just kind of a matter of circumstance. But then once I stopped seeing that as a liability and started seeing that as an asset of like, hey, I have to invest virtually, but now I'm starting to get good at investing virtually. And now I can go to any market in the country and immediately start buying houses. Now that I look at it as an asset, I'll never go back, right? The idea that, if laws change or if markets change, we can go to any market at any time with very little resistance. It's super freeing.
Yeah. And all those skills are going to work for any market. And even if that's where you are later on, like by going out, you're going to, like you said, like it felt uncomfortable at first, but now those skills you can transfer to any market in the country. So I really like that. And, I think that a lot of people, especially people in California, that's why they're buying everywhere else in Texas and Florida and Tennessee, all these other, markets, is because there's just really not good property investment opportunities there. People disagree. Like, I think there's people wholesaling in California, buying and hold multifamily, that are doing well. But I think in general, like the common investor is not going to go do very well in those markets. So that's when you look elsewhere. So yeah, I think that virtual is not something that should scare you off necessarily, but look at as an opportunity. And for you guys, when you're selecting these markets, are you, establishing like a team in those markets, or do you guys have your team wherever because you can work virtually and you focus on these through like the internet and calls and stuff like that?
We're truly virtual. I think some people say they're virtual, but they're really like they live an hour away. Like, we are virtual. We don't have boots on the ground in these markets. In some of the markets we've I don't even want to say we've built a team. We've built contractors we can trust. We've built property managers we can trust. We've built agents that we can trust. But that's not a prerequisite for us to go into a market. If we go into a market and we get a property under contract, right? We try to get the homeowner to get us pictures, right? We might have a contractor go walk through. If we have to get a contractor, we'll look in the yellow pages or look online and try to look for the nicest website we can find, so we know like it's a super professional contractor. Mm-hmm. Same thing for an agent. Like, we try to find an agent that looks super professional, that knows how to use technology, that seems to know what they're talking about. And then, we give them the opportunity to succeed or to fail. And we also go through a lot of vendors, right? Like, a lot of contractors don't work out. A lot of agents don't work out, but we try to be super conservative in all our underwriting. So even if they don't meet the timeline and even if they go over budget, the deal's still going to work. And over time, as we get more and more reps, we'll end up having our favorite agent in every market. We'll have our favorite contractor in every market. But I think a lot of people, they fail to take action because they're worried about building their team, right? Back to David Green, his book is awesome and he talks all about building his team. But I don't think you should wait to build your team to take action, because that may prevent you from ever taking action.
Yeah, that's really it. I'm going to have to go back and listen to that myself, because I think you just cut out like a whole growth process that probably took like you months to figure out. But if somebody just listens to that and grasps those concepts, it'll probably take them a month instead of like months or even longer and never take action. Yeah, you find people, you go through multiple contractors, multiple agents, but you find the right people by taking the steps and having the conversation, just doing it, right? And I mean, this is like me in my first rehab here. Contractors that I fired put a contractor lien on the house now released. We went through the attorneys to get that. Yeah, you go through the bad people and you go through the bad experiences, but you learn along the way. Like you can't just get into real estate investing and or really any business and not make any mistakes and do everything perfectly. But by listening to podcasts and stuff like this and doing what you just said, like you can shorten your learning curve and get there faster. So yeah, it's all about action though. It's like getting to your comfortable baseline and taking action.
Sure. And then make your money on your purchase price. Like you have to buy good, right? Like so many people will buy an average deal and then they'll try to nickel and dime their contractor, where like your contractor's gonna make his money. He's either gonna make his money from you paying him or he's just gonna cut corners, right? But like he's gonna make his money. So when you start trying to nickel and dime,
you don't want corners cut.
Or same thing with an agent, right? Like an agent's incentivized to get the best price for a property. But if you're trying to nickel and dime an agent, like they're gonna find their way to get their cut too. So, at those people that are, maybe in the middle of the process there, the contractors and the agents, we pay them well, right? And we don't try to nickel and dime them because we know that is a liability for us for not being in that market. So
and who do you think those people want to work with on the next deal, right? The people that treat them well and pay them well, or the people that's nickel and diming them? Like do not be the nickel and dimer, because like you'll fizzle out and get beat and get out competed by the people who are treating their people right every time.
And then those people start bringing us deals. Like contractors and agents, they know like, hey, we do what we say we're going to do and we close deals. They start bringing us deals all the time.
Yep. Yeah. I think one's reputation is probably like the most important thing, because this is such a relationship based business. Like I have deals come to me now because people know me, that I can do deals and all that. And I just had one that was sent to me and I closed on this, and he just like, this was just a friend telling me about this deal because he hosts a meetup in Crestview. I went there, and he wasn't the agent on this deal. It was off market, but he is an agent, but it wasn't like going through him, but he let me know about it. So I sent him like gifts. I sent him like stuff from Amazon, like a good book, like Amazon gift card, a couple of different things, like to show him appreciation, because I want to strengthen that relationship and do more business in the future. And I just like him as a person. So those kind of things matter, I think, like in the longevity of finding that next deal and, future success. I think that's huge. Like treating people right and knowing that your reputation carries a lot of weight. So like protect it, do the right things.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Absolutely. That's good stuff. So I want to make a little transition now to what you teach at the other academy. I can't even remember the name of it, but it's academy out there in New York. So performance psychology, because I think this helps. Whatever you're going to be doing, whether it's real estate or going to, playing a sport, anything. So can you give just a little breakdown of what performance psychology is?
Yeah. So it's the best definition I've ever heard is it's putting common sense into common practice, right? So it's, we all know that we're going to perform better when we have, constructive thoughts. We all know that we're going to perform better when we sleep well, or when we're working out consistently, when we're surrounded by good, positive people, right? So performance psychology is the study of, kind of getting rid of the old wives' tales, and doing that stuff for real, right? And, systematizing all that, right? So putting into practice those things that are going to help you be your best. So,
yeah, that's good. On top of that, we got to figure out now if it's wise tales. I
feel like it's old wives' tales. That's definitely one of those.
An old tale that a wife would tell in the past.
Yes, that's one that my wife would always correct me on. She'd be like, "You're saying that wrong."
Yeah, like, my wife's got a lot to say too, so she's got many wives' tales to tell. No, that's good. So, putting common sense and a common practice. Give me an example of how you use performance psychology and just in the everyday business of what you're doing.
So, I think one of the interesting things I heard is like. This moment becomes like this minute, becomes this hour, becomes this day, becomes your life. And what that means is so many of us at times were like, I'm going to start this project tomorrow. I'm going to get disciplined tomorrow. I'm going to be a grown-up tomorrow. I'm going to be rich tomorrow, right? It's like, what are your habits and routines today that are setting you up for success over time, right? So like start taking action today and then systematize that action so it stops being difficult, right? I say like everyone that's relying too much on willpower is going to end up failing. So how can you systematize the things in your life that are most important so they happen automatically, right? So like the baseline for that is like sleep, nutrition, and exercise. I don't care if you're an athlete or a real estate investor or something else, like you have to get good sleep, nutrition, and exercise if you want to be your best, right? And then if you're trying to be a great real estate investor, it comes down to like, what are those things that you're going to do every single day to help move the needle in your real estate business, right? Like what are those things? So if you need to be calling brokers, like how many brokers do you need to call? And then what are you going to do every day? Like, if it's, hey, I'm going to call one broker every day, like do that no matter what, like do that. If it is, hey, I'm going to analyze one deal every day, like do that, analyze one deal every single day, right? And then I also think with mindset and performance psychology, a lot of people are really unrealistic, like going into the new year, right? Everyone's like, hey, for the last, for my entire life, this is how I've lived. But come January 1st, I'm going to completely change everything I've been doing and become a new new person.
Gym membership spike.
Right? Yeah. I'm like, I'm going to have to just run outside for all of January because everyone's going to be at the gym taking my squat. Right?
No, this is like really good timing too. Because like, funny enough, this is going to come out the first week. This episode is going to come out the first week of January. So when people hear this, I think it's going to put perspective to what their, whatever New Year's resolution they made and everything like that. So, I mean, just to backtrack what you just said, because I think there's some real nuggets in there, is systematize your most important actions so that they become routine, so that they get done. Because if you have like those most important actions, like prioritize them, because if you need to analyze deals, if you need to call brokers and you're not putting the systems in place, I mean, that might just be writing in your calendar, right? Whatever, it's different for everybody. But systematize and prioritize that so it gets done. And then like the basics, like just getting sleep, getting rest, and taking care of your health is going to help you perform better, no matter if you're LeBron James or, me or you. That's really good. So what are some ways for people to start this year out with, I don't know how to put this, but just with a different light of, not just here's my New Year's resolution, I'm just going to change everything, right? It's going to be a whole new year, but how can they get like actionable performance boost, based on like their prioritization and everything?
Yeah, I would say generally people make their New Year's resolutions way too hard. They make their short-term goals way too big, right? They're like, hey, I haven't worked out at all in 2020, but I'm going to work out every morning at 5:30 in the morning, right? And it lasts 2 days and then they get off. So like if your goal is to work out, I would say like make your goal for the month of January to like put on your tennis shoes and walk around the block every day. Like that's it. Like walk 100 yards every day. And if that's too much, like be realistic and make it 50 yards, right? If that's going well, then maybe, you move it up to, hey, I'm going to run a half mile every day or something like that. But make your goals easy, okay? Because goal setting is all about building momentum and getting confidence, right? So what I want more than anything is to be successful, right? So I think about like I've always got charts with my goals, right? Like what's the day and what's my goal? And then I get to put a big red X if I accomplish that goal. And ultimately what I'm trying to do is just string together as many red X's as I can. And that's going to build momentum. And then I'm going to start increasing the difficulty and trying to get better and push my comfort zone over and over. But like too many people go from 0 to 100 overnight. They lose motivation and then they just quit. So generally I would say make your goal super, super accomplishable in the short term. I love big long-term goals, right? Like make your long-term goal huge and amazing and stuff they're going to write books about. But the steps to get there should be really small.
So yeah, break it down. Like I think it'd be really hard for me to go out and bench 500 pounds next week without working out to get to that point. So don't try to go bench 500 pounds all at once. Like maybe, grab some dumbbells and hit some flies or some push-ups, but that's really good. So basically break down your big goal into more achievable, actionable goals. So, for somebody starting out, would that be, under like analyze a property every day, you know, pick up the phone and call an agent, or should they be like, just jump to closing deals? I mean, I guess it's different for everybody, right? Because yours is probably like close a deal a day, but somebody else starting out might be different.
I think most people are going to have some combination of both of them, right? If you're trying to get momentum, you want what I would call like an input goal, not an output goal, right? And for input goals, I like the acronym DIY. So D is daily. What are you going to do every single day? And then the I is in your control. And then the Y is, does it have a yes or no answer, right? So a daily goal could be, I call a broker every single day. I analyze a property every single day, right? Those things that no matter what I can control, that's what I would focus on, not the outputs, right? Because you have to think, if I do these inputs, the outputs will come. But if you just focus on the output, chances are you're going to lose focus on the inputs. And sometimes those outputs don't come as fast as we want them to.
Yeah, that's really good. DIY, daily. What was I and Y? Yes,
yeah.
That was
in your control.
In your control.
And then the Y is a yes or no.
So basically, focusing on your lead measures rather than your lag measures. So
yes.
what produces the goal, not the goal itself. Like what you can do that's working towards it, but not the goal itself. Because if you do all these things, like at the end, you're going to reach the goal, right? If you hit all the lead measures, you're going to get the lag measure, which comes out.
Hopefully, right? If we do it right. But then I think, you know, like focusing super hard day in and day out on your lead measures, and then checking your lag measures maybe on a monthly basis and say, like, are my daily habits and routines giving me the output that I want? And if not, then we should change our daily routines.
Yeah, that's really good, man. I could talk about this stuff all day, but we're getting towards the end here, so I want to be respectful of your time. So, John, let's get into the Fortune 5. Okay, so
I'm excited.
John, all right, let's hit it, man.
Fortune 5.
All right, so for the first question, what is the biggest thing that has contributed to your success? Got caught up there. Cat had my tongue.
I think some combination of curiosity and action. I was never very good at school, but I was always very curious. So I'd be the person that would get assigned reading in high school and college, and I'd never do it. But I would read the books that I wanted to read like a crazy person. Like I just read a ton. And now in today's age, like watching YouTube videos and stuff, like I'm very curious about a lot of things and I go down the rabbit hole. But then I think what a lot of people don't have is they don't take action after that. So I think I have a good balance of being curious and trying to learn and then taking action super hard.
Learn something new, implement, learn from it, learn something new, implement, learn from that. Yeah, that's good.
Yes.
I love that. Love it. So second question, what's been your biggest mistake so far that's turned into a learning lesson?
Maybe partnerships. So we started 2020.
No. Frank better watch out for what's coming next.
We started 2020 with 4 partners or with 3 partners. And then we went to 4 partners and now we have 2 partners. And it's one of those things in looking back, I don't know if I'd make any of the decisions we made differently. And I'm happy with how everything went. We're good with all the other partners. Like we had 4 partners. We tried to make it work and it was clear that it wasn't going to work. So we had to break up and go our separate ways. And it was super difficult, super tough conversations to have. But they needed to be had for the strength of our business. So I'm very much for partnerships. Like do the partnership that helps you take action and helps you go over the hump. But then if you're looking at that partner and you no longer see eye to eye, don't be too slow to say, hey, we've drifted apart. We need to go in different directions.
Yeah, that's really good advice. I think one thing that I've always taken from people that are more experienced have been through a lot more situations and deals and partnerships too, is like be slow to partner. Like if you just click with somebody, that's awesome. You know, full send it if that's what you need to do. But like as I'm learning, it's like be slow on your partnerships, like date, don't marry right away. Like get in there, learn about each other, like do your long-term goals. Are they pointing in the same direction? Like where do you guys both want to be? And then once you like find that groove with somebody, like you've probably found like with all the success this year is like, it just meshes when you find the right partner. So spend some time on that for sure.
And then I like with real estate, it's so easy to when with a partner, do a deal. You don't have to say like, hey, we're going to create a real estate business and be married forever. Like, hey, let's do this one deal together. And if it goes well, maybe we'll do another deal.
Yeah. Hey, nice to meet you. You want to go to Vegas, get married?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, hey, nice to meet you. Come buy you a drink. Let's do a deal.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I like that. That's good. So what's your favorite book you'd recommend for someone starting out?
How to Win Friends and Influence People. It's not a real estate book, but it's all about, in my opinion, how to use the golden rule, how to interact with people, how to make people feel good about themselves. In the book, he says the sweetest sound in the world to someone is the sound of their own voice or the sound of their own name, right? Like calling someone by their own name, being personable. And then the other thing I would say is just read. I think I've read all the Bigger Pockets books and pretty much all the popular real estate books out there. Like when in doubt, like these people that wrote these books took all of the real estate knowledge they had and put it into potentially 200 pages. Like that's a great return on investment for most of those books.
Yeah. What I love is you just, with reading, you get to just jump into the mind of the author, right? See how they think about deals, like how they, if they're talking about analyzing, like how they analyze. Like right now I'm reading Jay Scott's book, Recession Proof Real Estate Investing, I think is the name of it. And just seeing how he breaks everything down. Like I feel like I'm getting like my market cycle MBA right now just through his books. So like you just dive in all these different topics. So yeah, that's a great book. I read that earlier this year, the How to Win Friends and Influence People, but 100% agree. Like read as much as you can, find the time. I wake up early every day and read for that reason. That's good. So outside of real estate, outside of doing all these deals and sending 200,000 text messages, burning your thumbs off, what do you like to do outside of real estate?
I made a conscious effort this year to say, I don't want any more hobbies that aren't family hobbies. I've got a awesome wife, and 4 young sons. And I said, hey, I want my hobbies to be family hobbies. So we do a lot of hiking, a lot of outdoor stuff, a lot of fishing, trying to get into mountain biking, but anything we can do as a family is something I'm super into.
I think you just like described my ideal life, like awesome wife and 4 sons. I got one out of the 5 right now. So
excellent. Congrats.
Yeah. I'm trying to, man, you got one more and you got a basketball team. I'm jealous.
There you go. I always say as a football guy, I'm like, I don't need a basketball team. As long as they're running the 3-4 defense, I got 4 linebackers.
There you go. Yeah. Bring them downhill. I love that. Yeah. So man, this has been awesome, man. For those listening, where can people find out more about you and connect?
Yeah. So my email is johnjohn@graylineinvestments.com. We've also got a Facebook group called Virtual Real Estate Investing, if anyone's interested. We also just started a mastermind, super low price tag mastermind, $200 a month. Most masterminds out there are super expensive, but $200 a month mastermind where we're trying to get new people in there just to talk about like, hey, we've learned a ton. We are very happy to share it with other people because, as you said early on, like an abundance mindset, right? Like there are plenty of deals out there for everybody. But hit me up on Facebook or Instagram or anything else. I'd love to.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. And on the mastermind thing, like if you guys just heard $200, do not get scared off because I'm in several different masterminds, 2 of them, and they've been like the biggest contributor to my success. One of them's paid. So like, just think about getting in like John's circle and being able to ask him questions or other people like him that have been through these different scenarios that maybe you haven't yet. Like that's been huge for me. So yeah, mastermind groups are huge. Check that out if you're interested.
So 2 things. One, we've spent over $20,000 this year on education, and it's been crazy, right?
Yeah.
Like there's
like you're saying, it's the biggest return on investment. Like all those books,
yeah,
like, and that's why that's where you get your most growth is by spending money on yourself.
It's huge, right? And then we early on we tried to do stuff for free. Like I'd much rather actually do stuff for free. But
people don't have the buy-in though. If they don't have skin in the game,
they don't buy in. They won't do it, right? And we're actually looking at our pricing for our mastermind. At $200 it's almost not enough buy-in. Like we may need to increase the price just so people have more buy-in. So if you're listening to this, get in now, right?
I love it. The call to action right there at the end.
Yeah.
But man, this episode was awesome. Go connect with John. I'll put all his information in the show notes. You can go connect with him on social media, email, whatever it is. But John, thanks again, man. This was awesome. Have another great episode that ties into just real estate so well, into multifamily. Anything you're going to do, like this is, you dropped some absolute knowledge bombs from marketing to talking to sellers to like the systems you use. So this has been awesome.
I really, really appreciate the invite, Blake. Thanks for your time. Go Army, beat Air Force.
Oh man, we can't end on that. Go Air Force, beat Army, sink Navy. And with that, we're out of here. Hey, thanks for listening. If you like the show, if you found value in it, please go to iTunes and leave a rating and review. And if you want to check out more on your multifamily journey, go to multifamilyjourney.com, where you can get free resources to start your journey and figure out your path. That's multifamilyjourney.com. But more importantly, go take action today towards your financial future. See you next time.